Hey guys, so in this video we're going to learn how to make our very own function. So far we've been calling from our library of functions up here that has a bunch of functions that we can call from, and the only other functions we've seen are setup and loop. These are actually functions as well, and this is actually how you create a function. So in order to make our own function, we first need to know a couple things about how functions are structured. So the first thing you have is your return type, and that's pretty much equivalent to a data type like we learned in the last video. As you can see, void is this blue color just like float. That's because those are both data types. And then next you need the name of your function, these two parentheses, and an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace. And anything that goes in that curly brace is a part of the function. So what this parentheses is used for is to look for inputs to the function. So if we look at our buzz function, we can see that we do have two inputs to it in order for that buzz function to run. This buzz function is saying, I cannot run unless I get these two inputs. I need to know a note, and I need to know a rhythm for that note. So let's make an example to show, let's just try to break down the buzz function and show how that would work. So I want to make a function. I don't want to return anything, so I'm going to say it's void. And let's just call it note for now. And we're going to give it two inputs. So we want a float of a frequency, and we want, let's just call it an int of a rhythm. Open and close the curly braces. And let's call the smart inventor function. And instead of putting something in here, we're going to put frequency and rhythm. Okay. So, if we come into our loop function, and I want to say, I want to call this note function. So we'll say note, open and close parentheses, and semicolon. So if we try to compile this right now, it's going to give us an error. And it's saying there's too few arguments to the function, and that it's looking for a float and an integer. So let's put in, let's say we want to play a note of frequency of 500 with a rhythm of a whole note. So now that should fix our problem, but let's break down, oh, I misspelled frequency. That should fix our problem, and now let's break down how this will actually run. So once we start our robot, the loop function begins, and it jumps down, and it sees we want to call the note function. So it jumps out of the loop function, looks for the note function, and starts running this. And it says, in order for this note function to run, it needs a frequency and it needs a rhythm. And then once it jumps down into the code, we can see that we need that frequency and rhythm inside of this buzz function. So once it tries to run this buzz function, it has to look at those inputs you gave it. So the frequency is equal to this first argument here, which is 500, and the rhythm is equal to the second argument here, which is 1. So we're playing a note at a frequency of 500, and it's a whole note. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but for our purposes, we don't need to make an argument on the function we want to make. That was just an example. So the reason we want to use functions is because they organize our code really well. So if we ever have something that's a very specific task that we use multiple times, we want to put that into a function. So every time we use it, all we need to do is call the function. We don't have to type out all of this lines of code. So this is a very specific task. It's playing a song. So anytime we want to play the song, we just want to call the function for that song. So let's go ahead and make function. So it's going to be void because we don't need to return anything. We just want to run the code. And let's call it song. And we don't need any inputs. So we'll just open and close those curly braces there. And now we can take all of this code that runs our song, copy it, and put it in here. So now, if we ever want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, all we need to do is say song and semicolon. So this makes our code much cleaner and easier to read. It also helps us to debug issues later on once we start to get a lot of code in our setup and loops. Because let's say we copied and pasted all of this Mary Had a Little Lamb code more than once, and what if there was a bug in it? Then we'd have to go through and fix it every time we've copied and pasted it. If we set it up this way, and there's a bug in song, every time we have a bug, we'll just have to fix it once within that function. So that's all I have for functions for now for you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.